Welcome back to the video series on infidelity. My husband cheated, now what? This is number 4 in the series and they build on one another. So if this is your first time coming to this series, I encourage you to go back and start with number 1. I'll apologize for number 1. I'm new to vlogging and I did a more scripted version and it's kind of stiff. So I'll probably go back and re-record it at some point. But the videos after that are much more personable. And if you skip number 1, that's probably not a big deal. There's no assignment in that. It just kind of sets the stage for why and what this video series is about. So in the last video, we looked at our wanted and unwanted identities and started to identify what's going on that makes us feel seen or unseen as any one of those adjectives that feel important to be seen or not be seen as, and then looked at how we react to those words. So this is a much shorter video. What I want you to do now is begin setting intentions. I want to help you align with your truest, most authentic self. And this becomes then the springboard from which you can have more confidence to start making decisions, navigating life after discovering that your spouse has committed infidelity. So whether you choose to stay or go, you're doing it from a place of courage and authenticity, not from a place of numbness, not from a place of feeling like you have to do things a certain way to orchestrate an outcome that's really outside of your control, such as someone else's behavior, thoughts, opinions, etc. So looking at your list of wanted identities, I want you each day to pick one of those words and be very intentional throughout that day to align with that word. So I encourage you to put reminders of that word in visible places, maybe a backdrop on your phone that includes that word, or sticky notes in a few key places, write it on your bathroom mirror. Do some things that put that word in front of you. Maybe on, somewhere in the kitchen, so when you're cooking dinner, you're thinking of it. And let's say the word is kind, and you are going to be intentional throughout the day to be kind. I would encourage you to think of kindness as having boundaries, that doesn't mean you're just kind at the total expense of self. And I pick that word because a lot of times we have that as a desired identity, but we do it to the point that we have no boundaries. We forget that we can be kind and say no. That being kind doesn't mean giving everybody everything they want or expect from us. So let's say your word is kind, and then throughout the day, things come up. Maybe you're in traffic and you're irritated, and you want to start cussing and fussing, to ask yourself, wait a minute, if I were acting from a place of kindness, what would I be doing differently right now? And whatever thought comes up to you, that is the thing that you can do then. It may be just a simple mind shift that you make to not be so irritated by the traffic. But then you could perhaps open the door to, well, I don't know what's going on with this person. Maybe they're responding to an urgent tragedy, or maybe they're moving really slow because they're really depressed because they just discovered some really bad news. And so that kindness allows you to let go of the irritation of the traffic. Another way to use that word is when you're in a moment of decision, you're kind of struggling with, what do I do in this moment? Ask yourself, if I were being kind right now, what would I do? And that's a place where you'd have to be careful, because kindness can say no. It's just that you say no with respect. You don't have to say yes to everything to qualify as kind. So pick your words one day at a time. Some people enjoy picking the same word several days in a row because it's a little harder to cultivate, or it's a really high priority word and they really want to work on it. So I don't care if you pick a new word every day or use the same word several days in a row. Then on the flip side of that, you will occasionally have something you do where you maybe see yourself or catch yourself or get caught by someone else being in alignment with an unwanted identity. In those situations, I want you to be honest with yourself and do a quick evaluation. Okay, was I actually in alignment with this unwanted identity? If the answer is yes, then own it, be accountable, say I did this, and make repair. Maybe the repair needs to be just made with yourself, and you need to say, all right, self, that's not who I want to be or how I want to be, so I'm going to be different. And I'm going to work really hard to align with this other word and put my focus there. And if you put your focus on what you want to be rather than on what you don't want to be, you'll have more success. If you're being in alignment with an unwanted identity has hurt someone else, then go to that person and say, hey, I did this, or I was this way, and that's not who I want to be. I'm sorry that I did that, and I'd like to work on being this way in the future, and I hope that you'll forgive me. And then you just get right back into alignment with your wanted identities. And it's hard to own it because there's some shame that can be brought up, but that's where the vulnerability and the courage comes into play. Because if you expose that to words and to the light, as Brene Brown says, then you diminish its power, and then you can work on reclaiming yourself, taking yourself back, and maybe even reinventing yourself to be the person that you most truly want to be. And then you are free to enter into relationships with people who see you and are attracted to you. And that includes the spouse that you're now questioning the fidelity of. You have to redesign that relationship no matter how you move forward, whether it be separate or together. There will be changes as a result. And so you going into these changes and into these decisions that come after discovering infidelity are best made when you have claimed yourself and stood firmly in your own identity, your own authenticity, your own vulnerability. Until next week, I wish you the best and hope you're enjoying these and finding these helpful, despite coming in response to a very painful and difficult situation. I wish you the best.